and welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys some queer reads you definitely should check out. But quickly before we jump into the video, thank you so much to the Geek Particle on Etsy for sending me this Red Queen inspired hoodie. As you can see, it has a red crown dripping with blood. I'm sitting on the floor so I don't have a lot of room to show you. And then the quote, "I am a red girl in a sea of silvers." So if you are interested in getting your hands on one of these beautiful hoodies, then make sure you check out the Geek Particle on Instagram or TikTok. I will leave links below, so definitely check them out. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. I have 4 books I want to share with you today, which have different kinds of queer representation in them and are in a variety of genres. So if you love more than just fantasy, or there's a particular genre you are looking for, then hopefully I will have it on this list for you. So first, because this is a primarily fantasy channel, let's jump in with a YA epic fantasy. I'm sure you've heard of this by now, but I more recently read it. It is called Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. This book follows a princess with magic as she is betrothed to a prince in a land in which magic is illegal. So first of all, she's freaking out trying to hide her magic from everybody, but secondly, she starts to develop feelings for the prince's sister. Scandalous! What I like about this book is that they don't have to hide their romance just because they are queer, since this is a perfectly acceptable thing in the universe of this book, but rather because she is betrothed to the brother instead. When a prominent member of court is assassinated, Mare and Denna, the 2 girls, must work together to solve the mystery, keeping Denna's magic a secret while, of course, trying to fight their feelings for each other. I will say this is not one of the best books that I've ever read. I felt like the story was very much a been there, done that. I've read a lot of YA with this kind of a plot, but what does make this unique is that it is 2 women at the heart of the forbidden love story. It certainly wasn't bad. I definitely enjoyed it, but all that to say, it didn't really feel like it was fresh, except for the fact that it had a female-female love story. So that is the primary reason I recommend it to you, because in the high fantasy genre, there are very few books, particularly in YA, which are led by queer women. So Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst, definitely get your hands on it. The next book on the list is a YA dystopian / horror novel called Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This book borders on literary in its writing style, which is quite different from a lot of the dystopian YA that we've seen previously. And when I say horror, I really do mean parts of this are horrific. In this universe, there is a girls' boarding school trapped on an island where this plague, or they call it the pox, has begun and basically does all sorts of horrifying things to the people that it infects, including giving them gills or other weird things like that. The main character's name is Hetty, and when her best friend Byatt goes missing, she has to leave the safety of the boarding school. Not that it's that safe, but like it's at least kind of walled in and brave the other horrors on the island. One of the other things tox can do is drive people crazy or rabid, so most of the animals on this island are super dangerous also. This book also features a female-female love story, although it is not a driving part of the narrative, but it is refreshing to see another queer female lead. This book was very gripping. I found myself racing through the pages, even at the same time being like grossed out and horrified by a lot of what's going on. So it's definitely not a world that you'll want to live in, but it is kind of like a feminist Lord of the Flies, I feel like is the best way to describe it. One thing I found very interesting is that the author chose to make all of the girls very flawed, but not in the like flawed kind of we can get on board with like their insecurities kind of flaws. Like they are flawed, selfish, manipulative asshole type of people. A lot of people have said this is a downside to the book and they think the characters are trash and can't get on board, but I personally feel like what the author was doing was kind of trying to allow girls to behave in the way that boys are allowed to behave in these kind of like survivalist dystopian future type of books. Like in Lord of the Flies, many of those boys turn out to be awful when allowed to let their primal instincts roam, and nobody ever criticizes that book by saying all of the boys were so unlikable. They recognize that it's an exploration of the darkness of humanity. So in this book, Rory Power tries to show that women also have this same sort of primal dark side. It does make some of the characters very unlikable, but it is an interesting feminist pushback against the idea that women are always supposed to be kind and delicate delicate and fragile. The third book that I want to talk about is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is a new release. I think you may have seen it on my Instagram, and I would highly recommend it. This is a YA urban fantasy featuring Latinx mythology. Now, I know a lot of people have a problem with the term Latinx because, from what I understand, it is placing anglicized grammar rules onto the Spanish language, but in this case I'm using it because the author himself describes the book that way. But alternative words you can use would be, I think, Latine or Latina, Latino. But yes, like as I said, the author describes this book as Latinx mythology, so that's why I'm using this word here. This book features a trans protagonist, and the author himself is trans, so it is an own voices story. But what's refreshing about this book is that it is not about his transness. He just simply happens to be trans in a fantasy world, although of course his personal battle against transphobia in his family context does play a big role in the narrative. Essentially how this society works is the men have the ability to summon ghosts and to help spirits cross over into the next world, and the women have the power of healing. So our main character, Yadriel, is a trans boy, so in his society they all want him to be a bruja, or a woman who heals, but he knows that he is of course a brujo who can summon ghosts. So the book starts with him choosing to summon a ghost by himself in order to prove to his family that he is in fact a brujo. And what he does is summon one of the bad boys from school, who he has just obviously found out is dead, and then they go on an adventure to figure out how he died, as well as some other people who have gone missing. They have a lovely little gay love story, which is so cute and to die for. There's so many great things about that, but the way that the romance was developed in this is just so like pure. And I just thought it was so cute. Like, so much of YA now is very aged up and like sexy and lust and chemistry driven, which is like not bad at all. But like in this, it was just refreshing to see like a cute little like first romance love story where like the most they do is have a little kiss and they're just like, oh, I like you. Not that it's like that cheesy, but you know what I mean. My one comment about this is that I did feel like it had a few problems with potentially some sexism. I'm torn because some people have said it's extremely misogynistic, and like in trying to make the case that Yadriel is a boy, the author unintentionally puts down all things feminine, or that the world in itself is sexist because the men all get to go out and have adventures and fight evil ghosts and summon ghosts, and the women have to stay home in the kitchen and just heal them when they come back. And that's never discussed as sexist in the book. It's all very just focused on the gender constraints for the trans main character. So I kind of see where people were coming from with that, but at the same time, I'm not really bothered by it because I feel like that dichotomy is set up to make the trans narrative compelling. So I don't really feel like it actually was being sexist and saying like all women need to be like this. It's just more like this is the way that the world was structured, which is the way that many societies have been structured historically in order to weave the trans narrative in with the magic system. So I sort of feel like if every book was like this, sure, it would be unfair to women, or men for that matter, who would rather be at home healing and cooking. But because we have so many books that deal with gender roles just by themselves, I feel like why can't we also have a book that just deals with gender identity by itself? I don't think this takes anything away from other feminist narratives that allow for women to do boys things and boys to do girls things. Rather, I just feel like it makes space for a clear and direct trans narrative. So that was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Definitely get your hands on this one. And the last book on my list today is Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This is my top book on the list. I really had nothing negative to say about this story at all. It was just adorable and like everything about it. So if you haven't heard of this book, it is about Millie Quint, a bisexual girl who gets cheated on and dumped by her best friend. So sad. And so goes to a boarding school in Scotland for a fresh start. She quickly finds out that her roommate at boarding school is actually a Scottish princess and also a huge snob and extremely stuck up. Basically, this story is a hate to love rom-com featuring two women. It is extremely lighthearted and fun, and honestly so funny. I laughed out loud many times, and the chemistry between the two characters is just like So I binged this. I read it so fast. It was just the most delightful, lighthearted escape read for the crazy time we're currently in. So Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. I definitely recommend it. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you do go check out these queer reads, as of course we all need more queerness in our lives. If you're interested in supporting this channel, you can follow the link to my Buy Me a Coffee page. All of the donations made to that page go towards helping me put my music up on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. So thank you so much for watching and for supporting this channel, and that is all. I will see you in the next video.